Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another episode on Beyond the Touchline. This is the pre-game week show for game week 25. As always, we've got 10 games to talk about, as well as the entire game week in general. Let's jump right in, drop a like on the video if you guys are enjoying the series, and of course, subscribe if you're new around here. As I said multiple times, thank you very much for the support. Hopefully, it's going to continue. But yes, let's jump right in. So I'm recording this actually on the back of this game. The game's just ended like an hour ago, something like that. So I've not watched the highlights, but based on what you see on the screen and based on what I'm seeing as well, it looked like it was a very hectic game. In terms of shots, actually, Liverpool just limited to 6 shots and 4 on target and still managed to score 2 goals. And obviously we've got a red card drama as well. I think probably Decore was celebrating from the Liverpool fans after Tarkowski had scored that very late equaliser. Honestly, Merseyside derbies, they tend to be very entertaining. And I think this is one of the other games that probably suggested so. But anyways, crazy game by the looks of it on paper. Maybe when you watch the highlights, it might even look crazier. But obviously, a great result from Everton's perspective, in my opinion. I mean, you know, I think they do sort of need this. Actually, previously, I predicted Everton to beat Liverpool by 2-0. So I think a draw is still a relatively good result in Everton's perspective. For Liverpool, I mean, it's obviously another 2 drop points for them, which essentially now they've played the same number of games as everyone else in the league. They're currently 7 points ahead of Arsenal, which will see the Premier League table in just a second, which is not too bad. I think it's still obviously a sizable gap. Looking at the way Arsenal are playing this season, it doesn't really look like they're going to close down. To be honest, I think maybe many people have expected this gap to be a lot bigger considering how lethal Liverpool have been this season, but it doesn't really feel like it. But anyway, so now let's have a look at the Premier League table. As I said, it's a 7-point gap. To be honest, Liverpool and Arsenal have only managed to lose 1 or 2 games respectively, which is obviously a very good number for both of them, a very healthy number in fact. And obviously within the top 10, I think I said this before, 5 of the top 10 teams have actually lost their games, which is obviously insane. But Everton, that draw against Liverpool have just catapulted them slightly from 16th all the way to 15th, ahead of West Ham. So obviously you can suggest that David Moyes is doing an exceptional job because he's unbeaten in the last 4 Premier League games, 3 wins and a draw, which I think is a remarkable result in my opinion. But I mean, the Premier League table is obviously the same as what we've seen the last time out. But as for the statistics, Mo Salah has scored another goal, obviously against Everton, so his goal tally is now up to 22. For assist-wise, he also registered an assist actually against Everton, so he's on 14 assists. But otherwise, everything else actually stays the same as before. Right, so here are the games for game week 25. So we'll start things off with Brighton Chelsea, followed by Leicester Arsenal, followed by West Ham Brentford, Southampton Bournemouth, Villa Ipswich, City Newcastle. That's definitely going to be a big game. Fulham Nottingham, Palace Everton, Liverpool Wolves, and last but not least Tottenham Manchester United. Another very big game, both at 2 ends of the table. Man City, Newcastle obviously fighting for the top 4 position, and you've got Tottenham and Man United fighting for the wooden spoon at the other end of the table. Right, okay, so obviously we're starting things off with Brighton and Chelsea. Now, as we're fully aware, I think Brighton, the up and down season is still continuing. Chelsea's up and down season is still continuing ever since Maresca talked about how they're not in the title race. It's been very lackluster, I think, for both teams. Even in the FA Cup, Brighton obviously managed to beat Chelsea. That just happened over the weekend, and obviously Chelsea on the receiving end of that defeat. Now, this is the fixture that's going to happen again. Will Chelsea beat Brighton this time around? I'm not exactly too sure. I think last time out was also at the Amex Stadium. So essentially, it's the exact same fixture that's being played again. How would Chelsea look into this game? How would they try to tackle this game, considering that they have lost the previous one? I think probably that one in the FA Cup was just a little bit of lack of ambition in general. It didn't really feel like they were pushing a lot. I was watching it. I just feel like a lot of things were missing in that game from Chelsea. The final clicks were not there as well. Jackson, I think he's just there to have fun more than actually being a proper striker to get the balls in the back of the net. It felt a very bad Chelsea team. Brighton, I think, again, sometimes they were a little bit lackluster too, but when they were given opportunity to shine, they definitely did, and that's how they obviously won the game. How would I think this game will pan out? I think it's going to be 2-2 draw. I think Chelsea are probably going to step it up for this one. I'm quite sure Maresca will tell the team to be a little bit more positive, tell them to fight for more things for this one. But I just don't think that any team here will be able to win. It might just happen, But from my perspective at this point in time, I think it's going to be a little bit challenging for any side to win this game. Right, Leicester and Arsenal, honestly, on paper, this game should be relatively straightforward. And Arsenal, again, the ambition to win the Premier League title after 3 seasons by the end of this, they've just got to do whatever they can. They've got to really smash opponents. Obviously, they smashed City 5 goals to 1, ruthless, in my opinion, that game. I would imagine and I would hope that they'll be able to transfer and continue to transpire that energy that they have had into this game against Leicester City, considering Leicester City are just a relegation threatened team. Even then, Leicester really honestly have nothing to fight for at this point, to be honest, by the looks of things. But still, I think the quality differential is just too huge. I'm quite sure Arsenal will smack them easily. In my opinion, at least, a win should be expected of Arsenal, and a very comfortable one is probably expected as well. As for Leicester, I mean, they can probably try their best. I think if Leicester do manage to take points off Arsenal, I think that would really suggest that, number one, Leicester City, maybe they just have a little bit of quality, but they'll just not be able to show it consistently throughout the entirety of the Premier League season so far. And number two, Arsenal are just, unfortunately, just not capable of winning a Premier League title. I think to be a Premier League winning team, you've got to be, it's very consistent. You not only have to be good, you've got to be very, very consistent. You may not only have to be the best at every single game that you play, because it's very difficult to maintain a high level of standard. But if you're not able to win games consistently, you're not able to pick points consistently, take points away consistently, you just aren't going to cut it, because they are always a team that's better than you. Because understand that ever since Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp has taken over the Premier League era, they've just been fantastic. As in, you've got to be very, very ruthless. You've got to be very, very consistent, almost pitch perfect. Perfect essentially. I think the only anomaly was that when Leicester City won the Premier League title back in 2015-16, yeah, they only had 80 points. And to be honest, even they've lost quite a couple of games, but ultimately they were consistent enough in that particular season because everyone else was just having a diabolical season. That's how obviously Leicester won the league. So, but if Arsenal are not able to do so in this one, as in if they're not able to win, the chances of winning Premier title is only going to get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. But I have belief in Arsenal to at least minimally try to close that gap to Liverpool. I say it's a 4-1 win to Arsenal. Very convincing in my opinion, as I've said. It may not be very convincing on paper, maybe not be very convincing when they actually play the game itself. But I think at the bare minimum, Arsenal should be getting a win. If they don't, as I've said, I will be very, very concerned for that one. Right, West Ham, Brentford. Obviously, both teams, they are in the bottom half of the table, while Brentford slightly higher than West Ham, obviously, in terms of points and in terms of position. West Ham, they've recalled James Ward-Prowse back from Nottingham Forest. I think in general, my consensus on that is that, yep, JWP just haven't had too many minutes at Nottingham. Nuno has been able to utilise whatever he has with his own personal Nottingham Forest team. Didn't really need the help of Oni's, and in this case, obviously, West Ham took the decision to either West Ham took the decision or James Ward-Prowse put in the decision to be recalled back into West Ham. Actually, to be honest, when Ward-Prowse moved to Nottingham, I was a bit shocked at first because I just didn't understand why. I felt he was doing exceptionally well at West Ham last season. I think Moyes managed to use him extremely, extremely well. And I felt he was really getting to the team pretty nicely, gelling really well too. So again, that one was a little bit concerned and a bit confused on my end. But hopefully this one will be a lot more positive. His return would, he'll be able to deliver a lot better results. He'll be able to fight with the team a lot more. As I said, Graham Potter is just that wild card still, in my opinion, still up and down in the results. Just haven't been able to manage a very consistent string of results to at least get them, closer to the top 10 if possible. At this point in time, I mean, 16th place is really not a good place to be, despite that gap to the relegation zone is still pretty big. But I think if you look at position-wise, every position that you climb into about millions of dollars, probably in terms of prize money, and I think that is very important for each Premier League team, especially when they want to bring in reinforcements next year as well. I think it's crucial for West Ham, at least in my opinion. Me supporting this club, obviously there will be a slight bias here, but important for West Ham to just get the win over the line. This one against Brentford. Brentford just haven't been consistent either, to be honest. I mean, up and down, they can really get results sometimes, but some games are just a bit confused the way that they're playing. So, but for this one, I'm going to predict a 2-1 win for West Ham. I mean, at home at the London Stadium, fans back in the box. It should be a lot more positive moving forward. I think they should show a lot more attacking intent. Hopefully Potter is able to at least, I'd say, narrow down some things that he wants to do with the club. Hopefully that criteria or that tactic is obviously narrowed down at this point in time. I think he's had a couple of games now. As I said, not really the most consistent, and arguably Lopetegui would probably be able to do is what he did. So to me, that doesn't necessarily justify Lopetegui's sack just yet, unless Potter really does put in results. Ultimately, that's what we're talking about, right? Managers and results. But yeah, in my opinion at least, West Ham should be winning this one. Fingers crossed, I guess. Right, Southampton Bournemouth, I think, again, another game that we should be relatively straightforward at least. I mean, you've got to understand once again how good Bournemouth have been this season and how bad Southampton have been this season, despite picking up their second win against Ipswich. But ultimately, that looks like it's going to be another championship level sort of fixture. So at least I guess they've won that. But ultimately, the grand scheme of things, how they've been the entirety of the season, it's just been poor in my opinion. Even, Southampton themselves are not being able to capture results and not being able to hold on to leads. Whereas Bournemouth, they've been really good this season. Areola has been wonderful. The way that he's managed to channel the team to greater heights is really just, eye-opening and eye-awing as well to really watch them play. It's very positive. On that note, I think it should be a relatively straightforward game at the St. Mary's for the Cherries. It should be a win in my opinion, but straightforward should be. But my prediction is going to only be a 1-0 result. I think going to be very comfortable, right? But maybe the scoreline isn't necessarily going to reflect that. I feel that Ramsdale is probably going to make a couple of really good saves. I feel like Southampton are going to have their chance or two, but just not unable to convert. I think that's been the story really for Southampton this season. Even when they had chances to convert results or convert shots to the goals, sometimes they've been rather unlucky, whether it be someone on the line or just a very good block or very good save from the goalkeeper. So unfortunately, in terms of luck, Southampton don't really have that much. But yeah, I just think that, I just don't see them being very competitive in this game. Again, it's a prediction. We might go crazy for this one. But in my opinion, it should be a 1-0 win for Bournemouth, or at least a win for Bournemouth. Right, Villa Ipswich. I for one sort of see this slightly to be a thriller, simply because of the fact that I think this game might actually deliver. Again, Ipswich are obviously fighting for survival, evidently. As for Villa, again, they're trying to fight for the lofty positions, but again, in terms of their consistency, it's still not necessarily that positive either. To me, they've really got to try to be as positive as they can be. Otherwise, again, to fight for that top 4 position is not going to be easy. Again, it's like 4 teams now fighting for that top 4 position, which is obviously going to be very difficult. You've got 4 teams fighting, but you've only got 1 spot, and it's only going to be rewards to the team with more points, aka more consistent, aka more wins maybe on the board as well. But for this one, I think, Ipswich are going to try their absolute best to fight, but I think we are fully aware again, it's not going to be very easy for them moving forward. For Villa, I think the expectation for them to win is obviously pretty high as well, considering I wouldn't say it's Ipswich, but a relegation threatened side, Villa, and at home as well, the Villa Park. It should be very expected of them to actually get the win over the line. But I feel that this game is probably going to deliver quite a lot of classics. I'd say it's a 3-2 win. Now, obviously, this result may not happen because obviously it's just a prediction. But my take on it is that I think Villa are probably going to get a win across the line. But I just don't think that they're going to be as consistent again, as in the game itself, they're probably going to stumble a little bit here and there just before they'll be able to close the deal for this game. But, I mean, if let's say this result were to happen from Ipswich's perspective, it will be very gutting because they scored 2 goals, but they've conceded 3. So, yeah, I think defensively they'll be very disappointed with that. But that's how I predict this game's going to go. We'll see what happens for this one. Alrighty, the first big game of the weekend, Man City against Newcastle. 2 teams fighting for the top 4 position, which ultimately means to me, it is absolutely vital for them to actually win this game. Whether or not Chelsea win is another thing altogether. City will have to tell themselves to get the win over the line first. And it's the same with Newcastle. Obviously, from Newcastle's perspective, Alexander Isak, fantastic goal scorer, still scoring multiple goals. Ultimately is a threat for Man City, considering how terrible that the club has been so far. Haaland might be a threat for Newcastle, but I mean, maybe Dan Burn is able to really deal with him properly. Maybe the Newcastle backline, Dubravka, would be able to do exactly what a defense is supposed to do, which is just defend properly and prevent the opponents from scoring goals. Obviously, City, I think, being a City fan right now, I think whenever you watch games, you've really just got to watch at the very end. I mean, obviously, the back of that defeat against Real Madrid, we were 2-1 up. right, at the 80th minute. And again, another capitulation, another collapse. I think, to be honest, statistically, I think we've really had more losses this season alone in all competitions than the past 3 seasons combined, which to me is a crazy stat, which just goes to show how good the club has been this season. Sorry, how good the club has been for so many years, and how I wouldn't say bad. It's just that really the season is that odd season essentially. But I think I'm very, very prepared that this is probably going to continue on. I mean, as I said, the squad is aging massively, and Pep not necessarily making very, very good tactical decisions as well. But I guess it's just part of the game essentially. I think it's been a very, very successful decade from the club already, and the only thing that I can do now is continue to support them to the best of my ability. And if they're able to pick up wins, fantastic. And if they're not, then it is what it is essentially. But as I said, the season, I would rather forego the Champions League, to be honest. At this point, I very much rather than focus on the league and get that top four, such that we're able to at least be in the Champions League again next season. Otherwise, as I said, Europa League is quite inbound for City, which is obviously new territory for me as a fan. It's not really something that I really want, but I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? When your club just hasn't been doing very well this season, it is what it is. But again, for this particular game, I think it would be very, very fiery. I think the last time out was a 1-1 draw. I think Anthony Gordon and Oscar Vario were the two goal scorers. Obviously, City conceded a penalty in that game. That was how we didn't manage to get the win. And I think that was a start of wobbles after wobbles as well. That was a sign, at least, at the very start of the season when that happened. But for this one, I'm going to say it's a 2-1 win to City. Again, I just want to have faith in the club, to be honest. I would really want to see them actually being able to hold results over the line. I would imagine it will be 1-0 to City first, and then we probably 1-1 to Newcastle, and then City will just get the ball in the back of the net once again to make it 2-1. But again, exact replica of Real Madrid. Just that I would hope that this one they will be able to hold on. Otherwise, again, yeah, I think more troubles are going to come ahead for Man City. Alright, Fulham and Nottingham Forest. Now, this game, I think it will be a very, very tight one, considering how Nottingham Forest and Fulham have both had relatively very, very good season. Obviously, Nottingham being the much better team for this one. But again, Nottingham Forest have had their wobbles already this season, and a little bit of wobbling as we speak. Not very positive in my opinion from Nottingham, despite initially whenever they struggled, right, they will bounce back immediately the next game. But at this point in time, it looks like it's going to be quite up and down. But of course, as I said, they're obviously saving the Premier League already. They've already hit past the magic number of 40 points. And at the moment, they're just really trying to fight for a good Champions League spot at this point in time, which I think is really genuinely very, very possible. They should be securing third place, barring nothing crazy happens, to be honest, barring any existential crisis or them collapsing massively. But yeah, otherwise, it should be relatively straightforward for Nottingham Forest. They should be staying where they are right now in the Premier League table. As for Fulham, obviously, they're still going to try to fight for another lofty position. But obviously, Marco Silva's team, again, sometimes you can do very, very well, sometimes not too much. Again, consistency is the keyword, really. Again, lacking that means just, you need to try harder. Again, you need to be able to deliver results week in, week out, which is not very easy for everybody, to be honest, but that is how it is. So for this one, at least, I think it's going to be a really tight game. Crivet's Cottage is never really meant to be an easy ground to play at. I'm going to say it's a 2-2 draw. I'm going to predict Nottingham Forest to drop slightly more points again for this one, but does it do massive detriments to their top four slot? Maybe a little bit, because at this point, by the looks of predictions, I'm predicting Chelsea to draw, so that wouldn't really affect them, but I'm predicting City to win, so City would close the gap to Nottingham Forest in that regard. But otherwise, I still feel that Nottingham Forest should be very, very okay when it comes to keeping that third spot. Again, unless something crazy happens, yeah, it should be fine. I mean, I expect everybody to drop points moving forward, except Liverpool and Arsenal. Arsenal, maybe I'll still expect them to drop points, but I think at least Liverpool, I don't really expect them to drop points anymore moving forward, but it might still happen. But anyways, for me at least, yeah, this is the result I'm going to go for this one. I think it's going to be a really entertaining game as well. Right, Palace and Everton. Now, obviously, Palace season's getting better, obviously, after that really, really wobbly start. And arguably, I believe Glasner's position was in threat. And I'm just glad Palace didn't sack him. They decided to continue to believe in him. And he's obviously developed quite well, in my opinion, at least. I think they've been climbing up the Premier League table a lot, thanks to a really good run of results thus far. As for Everton, I think Moyes coming in has really changed the landscape of the team so far. Again, it's just the first couple of games, very hard to manage. We'll see where they end up at the end of the season. If it's, they've really climbed massively in terms of points tally at the bare minimum, then probably we can suggest that Moyes is probably going to do a lot better next year when hopefully they're able to have some money to be able to bring reinforcements and really change up the team once again. Again, the team obviously needs a rebuild, but obviously in the back of a draw against Liverpool and the starting centre back Tarkowski, unfortunately not being able to participate in the next game. They obviously have to bring in their backup centre backs in first of all. But aside from that, this is, to me at least, it's something like a relegation 6 points a game as well, because both teams are in the bottom half of the table. I believe Everton are closer to the drop zone than Palace. So because of that, I think Everton will obviously themselves needing to win. But against Selhurst Park, is it a very easy ground to win? Not really, to be honest. But the way Everton been playing since Moyes' arrival, I think it looks, obviously to me at least, a lot more livelier and and they're able to obviously get some results over the line. I mean, they're beaten in the last 4 Premier League games, which is a crazy stat to think about, to be honest. And they've obviously picked up a lot of points, so that's exactly how they've ended up where they are at the moment in the Premier League. Despite being only 15th by a total points tally, I think it's very, very important for them to continue to at least, raise this number. For me, I predict that Everton are actually going to win again. A 2-1 win for them. Defensively, again, Everton have got to be a lot more positive. They've got to be a lot more solid. Attacking wise, they've just got to really push it as much as they can moving forward. And hopefully, we'll be able to get a win over the line. I think Palace, unfortunately, Everton might be a little bit too much for them for this one. At least that's my prediction. But we'll see what happens. I think this one would also be quite an entertaining game. Alrighty, Liverpool and Wolves. Now, to me, this has to be very, very straightforward. Wolves can be as crazy as they can be, but the probability of them beating Liverpool or even drawing with Liverpool is obviously very, very, very low. And Wolves, their current form is also, to me at least, diabolical. I mean, just throwbacks to when Victor Pereira managed to do very well and beating his first three, 2 wins in the draw, and after that, it's just been a high level of consistency. Again, it felt like as if it was Gary O'Neill 2.0. Had Gary O'Neill stayed, it probably would have been the same. So, sacking that manager and bringing him in so far, at least, hasn't really shown the results. And again, you must understand that this Wolves team, right, they are a relatively good side and not a relegation threatened team, in my opinion. There are some quality in there that I feel like they would be able to get the wins over the line, but they've just not been able to. And because of that, they still continually see themselves in this relegation scrap. I mean, 17th is definitely a relegation scrap unless the points gap is too huge to the point, it's just unclosable. But to be honest, in football, everything is just unpredictable until the day it's mathematically impossible to get relegated. You always still stand a chance of getting relegated, in my opinion. But for this one, again, against Liverpool, you're just asking for trouble. It's going to be very, very difficult to secure any sort of result. I'd say it's a simple 3-0 win. I think Liverpool should be back to winning ways after this draw against Everton. I mean, ultimately, Merseyside derbies are always crazy, but for this one, I feel that Liverpool should be winning this one very, very comfortably. Again, any drop points to Liverpool, I will be very amazed, because then Arsenal could actually have a shot of closing them down even more, because now they play the same number of games, right? Which means Arsenal now have a very, very clear target of this is the number of points, and this is the gap that we have to close down. Let's do so. Yeah, so this might be a crazy week as well for both of these clubs, Arsenal and Liverpool. But as I said, the expectation for Liverpool to win is very, very high, and they should be doing so as well. Right, to wrap this game week up, we've got Tottenham and Manchester United now. Obviously, both teams are really, really struggling this season. And Man United, despite Erik ten Hag sacking, getting Ruben Amorin in from a very, very good Sporting team, he's been unable to transfer his tactics from Sporting to Manchester United. It's not been working out whatsoever. And yeah, he had many home defeats. I think 5 home defeats in his 7 home games as well, which is crazy to me, to be honest. And even away, they're not doing very well either. Tottenham as well, because of their concurrent injury crisis, is also really impacted them in their games and stuff. I'd say this game is going to be quite hectic again, to be honest. Both teams not exactly knowing what they're fighting for. I said this at the very start of the video, it's like fighting for a wooden spoon. And it just feels like it, doesn't it? Like both clubs have just not been able to perform at all whatsoever. And, I think it's obviously poor from both teams. But, we'll see what happens with both teams ultimately in this game. It should be very, very entertaining. Now, if any team were to win, I can't really predict that, because I'm predicting a 2-2 draw. Now, if any team were to win, I would reckon that the win would be very, very convincing, because for a team to win, to me at least, any of these both teams to win for this fixture, the other team just either have to be super lucky, or they themselves have to be super lucky, or the other team is just not be performing at all whatsoever. Like the levels have dropped to a deeper level, negative level, of course, and because of that, they're able to take advantage of it. Otherwise, I feel like nothing really can separate these two teams. It looks like it should be a draw. But I might be wrong. But again, the second big game of the season because of this weekend, simply because of the fact that, you know, Tottenham Manchester United is always meant to be quite crazy. We've been treated to some really fun games every time these two come about. So I don't think they've a really fixed rivalry. Like it's not like Liverpool Man United, that's like a fixed derby. Man United Arsenal, that also is quite like a fixed derby. Man United City, obviously Manchester derby. But for Tottenham Man United, I don't exactly think that people really see this as a fiery derby sort of or really like that sort of fiery fixture that people will tend to allude to most of the time. I think Tottenham Manchester United is just a very good game for a lot of people to watch, but I feel like that's about it. But yeah, looking forward to this game, of course. I mean, 2-2 draw would be quite an interesting result, obviously, for both sides. Now, of course, there will be another game that will be coming up midweek. I'm not exactly too sure how I'm going to do this, as in when I'm going to record the post-game week show for Game Week 25. Would it be before or after this game? But regardless, I just feel that it makes sense for me to just, you know, just say the predictions first, and we'll see how we can manage in terms of recording later on. But the only game I will be talking about is the game for Villa and Liverpool, because I believe because of the EFL Cup, the final, that is probably the reason why this game is probably being rescheduled. Actually, Newcastle Palace, their game has been rescheduled as well. It's just that I don't know exactly when their game is going to be rescheduled. So when it does, then I will tell you the predictions for that one. But as for now, for Villa against Liverpool, now obviously just at the back of, probably will be the back of the last game, right? Villa would have been facing Ipswich Town, and Liverpool will be on the back of facing Wolves. Now, I predicted both sides to win. And to be honest, Villa Liverpool is always going to be a very intense game as well. I think Unai Emery has always been able to be very competitive against Liverpool. Obviously, last time out, Liverpool managed to beat Villa, but only at the expense of counter-attacking goals, which is obviously something that Liverpool are very good at. And I remember that time I questioned Villa a lot, thinking why you're pushing so many men forward, because both the goals were conceded from corners, in swinging corner from a Villa man, just couldn't get at least on target, like couldn't push it towards Alisson to try to trouble him. Instead, Liverpool cleared their lines, and then Mo Salah or any Liverpool attacker was able to get on the end of that, and they were able to end the result with a goal because of counter attacking. So, but for this one, again, Villa Park, as I say, is always a very difficult place to play at. I, for one, sort of believe that Liverpool are going to drop points again this one. Not going to be easy, obviously, for Liverpool to drop points, but this one might just be another one of those games where it happens. Again, obviously, as I said, I always can be wrong. It's prediction nonetheless. But I just feel that Villa, they probably have something in the locker to try to stop Liverpool. But obviously, I think Liverpool obviously have always a very high chance of winning. It's just that maybe for this one, they will not be able to get the 3 points. But at least, ultimately, at least it's not a defeat, right? Liverpool have only lost one game so far this season, so I think this one, this number one is probably still going to stay for quite some time. But in terms of the draws column, yeah, this number might increase with this one. Depending on how Villa plays, to be honest, if Villa are playing the game of their lives, then they definitely stand a chance of preventing Liverpool from getting a win for this one. But there we go, guys. Thank you very much for watching this one. Of course, as I said, get discussing in the comments down below what you guys think the results are going to be for this particular game week, as well as the game for Villa against Liverpool. But yeah, that'll be it from me. As I said, thank you very much for the support, guys. Drop a like on the video if you guys have enjoyed this one, and of course, subscribe if you're new around here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, goodbye.